Empress Selara sat upon her throne, high above the gleaming capital of the galaxy she ruled. The throne was carved from the crystal of a dying star, catching light in a way that made it look alive, as if the stars themselves had bent down to bow before her. From her palace windows, she could see fleets of ships gliding through the dark expanse, each moving with perfect order, each loyal to her command. Every planet, every system, every sentient being in the galaxy recognized her name, Selara, the Empress of Light and Shadows. She had conquered rebellion after rebellion, negotiated with alien coalitions, and survived betrayals that had broken men and women alike. Yet, for all the power she possessed, for all the control she wielded, her chest ached with a longing she could not name. Power had built her walls high and her life grand, but it could not reach the soft corners of her heart where loneliness lived. In the quiet moments, when the palace hummed with the energy of distant suns and whispered messages from her governors, Selara felt the emptiness. She remembered nights on the mining colonies as a child, when she had watched the stars with her brother before he disappeared into the void. She remembered laughter shared with friends who no longer existed, smiles that faded like the morning mist. The galaxy had given her everything, a throne, armies, worlds, but it had not given her someone to share it with. Tonight, she allowed herself a rare moment of weakness. She leaned forward, resting her hands on the cold arms of her throne, and gazed out at the twinkling lights below. Ships crossed paths in the void like glowing fish in a black ocean, carrying messages, trade, and troops. She could command them to fire, to defend, to conquer, yet she could not command her own heart to feel fulfilled. Her advisors, generals, and counselors often whispered that such feelings were weaknesses. "Empress," they would say, "your heart cannot lead an empire, only your mind can." But Selara knew the truth. It was her heart that remembered, that dreamed, that longed for something more than control. It was her heart that rebelled against the very throne she sat upon. A faint memory surfaced. A boy she had once known, small and fierce with eyes full of mischief. He had challenged her stubbornness, laughed at her pride, and somehow pierced the walls she built around herself even then. She had left him behind when she left the colonies, carrying ambition in her hands instead of love. That decision had shaped the path that led her here, to the edge of all known worlds, surrounded by awe and fear, yet unable to reach happiness. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the ghost of his laughter, the warmth of his small hand in hers. A soft chime echoed through the palace, signaling the arrival of another message from the outer systems. She did not reach for it. She knew the contents before even reading, reports of disputes, rebellions, new technologies, political negotiations. The galaxy continued its rhythm, unbothered by her inner storm. And yet, somewhere in the distance, in a place untouched by her power, perhaps someone remembered her too. Perhaps someone still waited. That thought made her pulse quicken and her chest tighten with hope she refused to name aloud. Empress Selara rose from her throne and walked slowly to the panoramic window. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman who had everything, yet carried nothing but questions inside. The light of 1,000 stars glimmered across her face, and for the first time in centuries, she allowed herself a small, fragile wish. Not for power, not for control, not for victory, but for a heart that would remember her not as Empress, but as Selara. And in that quiet, fragile hope, the galaxy itself seemed to pause, waiting with her. Days passed in the sprawling palace, yet the emptiness in Selara's heart did not fade. She moved through corridors lined with gold and light, her presence commanding silence, her steps echoing like distant thunder. The galaxy continued to hum with activity. Traders moved goods, fleets patrolled borders, and planets reported in. But inside the grand halls, Selara felt a quiet hollowness that no victory or tribute could fill. She had learned long ago to hide it from the eyes of others, to wear the armor of authority. But at night, when the stars blinked softly against the darkness, she allowed herself to remember. Then the message came. Small, unassuming, and unlike the usual reports, it arrived in a simple courier ship that slipped past the palace defenses without fanfare. Selara did not recognize the sender. The message contained only a few words, written in a hand she thought she would never see again. "I am alive, and I remember you." Her heart froze. The galaxy, with all its wars and conquests, could not have prepared her for this. She stared at the text for long moments, trying to understand it, trying to convince herself that it was a trick, a trap, a joke. But the message carried a weight, a quiet certainty that shook her in ways no fleet or planet ever could. Memories surged forward unbidden. Laughter shared under twin moons, secret conversations on dusty hills, moments when she had felt truly seen, not as an empress but as Solara, a girl dreaming of stars too big to reach. Her advisors waited in the council chamber, their faces tense, their voices measured. Reports piled high on polished tables. Ships needed orders, planets requested her judgment, rebellions simmered on distant borders. Yet Solara could not speak, could not focus, could not dismiss the memory that had awakened in her chest. "The galaxy cannot wait for your memories, Empress," one of them said. "Every decision here will ripple through 100 systems. You must act." She nodded, but inside she made no promise to them. Her mind was already far away, tracing the faint path of a message across light years, imagining the voice behind it, imagining the hands that had written those words. She felt a stirring she had not felt in decades, a warmth, fragile and trembling like a new star forming in the void. It terrified her. She had ruled with clarity and precision for so long that the idea of following a whisper of hope felt reckless, almost insane. And yet she could not resist. Solara retreated to her private chambers, shutting the doors to the palace, shutting out the weight of empires. She stared at the message again, tracing each letter with her eyes, memorizing the curve of the words as if they could lead her to the sender. She thought of the boy she had left behind, the one whose laughter had challenged her stubborn pride, whose courage had never faltered even when hers had. Could it really be him? Could someone from her past have survived the endless void and the chaos of galaxies? A single tear slid down her cheek, unbidden, as she realized that for the first time in centuries, she felt something entirely beyond her control. The galaxy could bow, planets could tremble, enemies could fear her fleets, but her heart, fragile and unpredictable, had found a new course, one she could not command or foresee. It demanded attention, demanded courage, demanded the impossible, a choice between the throne she had built with fire and stars, and the hope that someone she had once loved still waited for her somewhere in the infinite darkness. Solara rose from her seat, determination hardening her features. She would not act recklessly, nor would she abandon her empire lightly. Yet she knew one truth more powerful than any decree, any law, any conquest. The heart could not be silenced, and for the first time, Solara realized she was willing to risk everything, even the galaxy itself, for the possibility of rediscovering what she had lost. Somewhere out there, beyond fleets, beyond planets, beyond time, someone remembered her. And that was enough to set her world and her heart into motion. Empress Solara stood on the bridge of her flagship, the largest vessel in her fleet, its hull glowing faintly with the energy of captured stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly outside the reinforced glass, a tapestry of light and darkness, of worlds thriving and dying. Every fleet she had commanded, every soldier who had followed her through wars and rebellions, waited for her orders. Yet her mind was far away, caught in the fragile threads of a memory that refused to fade. She had never disobeyed duty before, never allowed desire to challenge command. But now, the heart that had slept under the weight of empire stirred, defiant and unyielding. Her closest aide, a veteran of countless campaigns, approached carefully. "Empress, our borders require your attention. The outer colonies are unstable and the Jaran fleets are gathering near the Nebula Rift. You cannot abandon them." Solara's eyes did not leave the stars. "I am aware," she said softly, almost to herself. "But some missions cannot be commanded with strategy alone." The aide frowned, uncertain, but he knew better than to press further. Solara had led armies across the void, outwitted alien coalitions, and survived betrayals that would have shattered any other leader. If she had decided that a personal journey was worth more than the immediate safety of her fleets, then it was not for him to argue. She activated the navigation console herself, charting a course toward the coordinates from the message she had received. The route led through uncharted space, past nebulae thick with radiation and over asteroid belts that had claimed entire fleets. Every calculation was precise, every maneuver deliberate, but each light year she traveled felt like she was moving closer to a truth she had long denied. Her heart pulled her forward, against the advice of logic and duty, against the expectations of millions who relied on her. Alone in the observation deck later, Solara let herself breathe. The stars seemed to whisper secrets she had forgotten, their distant glow reminding her of the boy from the mining colony. He had challenged her stubbornness, made her laugh, and somehow reached the part of her that the throne never could. Could he still be alive? Could the spark that had once connected them endure all these years, across war, distance, and silence? A low hum vibrated through the ship, the engine thrumming with raw energy. She placed her hands on the glass and felt the vibration through her fingertips. The galaxy could tremble at her command, yet it could not command her heart. This journey was not a conquest, not a battle for control. It was a rebellion of something far more dangerous: love. Solara realized that she had spent centuries ruling others while ignoring the one person she truly sought. She had constructed walls of gold and fleets, of policies and strategy, yet they could not protect her from the raw vulnerability of hope. Hours turned into days. Solara walked through the corridors of her ship, watching the stars streak past. Memories collided with anticipation, joy clashing with fear. Every instinct screamed caution, every emotion demanded courage. She had faced alien warlords, traitors, and cosmic storms, but this was unfamiliar terrain. Her heart was not a battlefield she could strategize. It was a force untamed, unpredictable, and impossible to control. And she would follow it, even if it meant stepping into the unknown alone. As the coordinates drew closer, Solara felt an ache of fear and excitement she had not known in decades. The galaxy had taught her to calculate risks, to value precision above all, but the heart did not care for caution. It demanded courage, demanded faith, demanded surrender. Solara smiled softly, a small, fragile curve of her lips. For the first time in her life, she was not the empress of the galaxy, commanding fleets and planets. She was Solara, a woman moving toward something larger than herself, something she could neither rule nor conquer, something that promised the impossible: connection. And in that quiet rebellion, the vast emptiness of space seemed less intimidating, the stars less distant. For the first time, she understood that some battles were not fought with fleets or fire. They were fought with courage, with vulnerability, with the willingness to follow a heart that refused to obey. Solara's flagship drifted closer to the coordinates, a lonely beacon cutting through the darkness of uncharted space. Outside the observation windows, stars stretched into lines, the void moving past her as if the galaxy itself were rushing her toward an unknown fate. The planet beneath her sensors was barren, scarred by meteor impacts and long-abandoned colonies. Nothing moved. No lights, no ships, no signs of life. Doubt gnawed at her chest, cold and relentless. She had imagined this reunion for weeks, had allowed herself to dream of laughter and reunion, yet now she wondered if it had all been a cruel illusion. Her hands gripped the console as her mind raced. What if he is gone? What if the message was a trick? Shadows of fear crept along her spine. Even the most disciplined generals would falter under such uncertainty, yet she had always prided herself on her clarity of mind. But clarity offered no comfort against a heart that refused to listen. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, had never felt smaller and lonelier. She realized that no throne, no empire, no fleet could prepare her for this moment, the confrontation between hope and reality. Her advisors circled her, tension in their faces, uncertainty in their voices. "Empress, we have no records of life on this planet. Our scanners detect only barren rock and radiation," one said. "It may be a trap, a false signal from a hostile species. You must reconsider." Solara did not turn. Her eyes remained on the lifeless surface, on the possibility of a single flicker of light, a single movement, a single proof that hope had survived. "I will go down," she said quietly. "Even if the galaxy trembles in my absence, I must see this through." The aide hesitated, fear in his voice. "Empress, this is reckless. The planet is unstable. Storms and radiation could destroy the shuttle. We cannot guarantee your safety." Solara's lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "I have faced armies betrayed by allies, storms that could tear ships apart. Nothing has ever frightened me as much as the thought of never knowing." She boarded her small shuttle alone, leaving behind the security of the flagship, leaving behind the fleets, leaving behind the empire she had ruled for decades. The engines ignited, and the shuttle dropped into the planet's atmosphere, buffeted by violent winds and drifting ash. The barren world stretched below her, a landscape of gray rock and jagged mountains. Every moment, every gust of wind, every tremor of the shuttle reminded her how fragile life was, how delicate hope could be. Yet she pressed on, guided by something deeper than maps or strategy, the pulse of her own heart. Hours passed as she navigated the desolation, every crater and broken building whispering reminders of time lost. She touched the controls, felt the vibrations beneath her fingers, and wondered if he was truly out there, waiting, or if she was chasing a memory that had died decades ago. Her chest ached, a mix of fear, longing, and love she could not name. Even with the galaxy behind her, even with all her power, she felt helpless, exposed, and human. Finally, as the shuttle hovered over the ruins of an abandoned settlement, a flicker of light caught her eye. Tiny, almost imperceptible but unmistakable. Her breath caught. Her heart pounded as if it would leap from her chest. The galaxy, with all its stars and systems, seemed to hold its breath alongside her. Could it truly be him? After all the years, all the space between them, all the silence, was it possible that someone still waited for her, that the spark she remembered still burned? Solara's hand hovered over the control panel, trembling as she prepared to descend. This moment was not about fleets or empires, not about power or victory. This was about heart and hope, about choosing to face fear for the sake of something precious, fragile, and human. And in that quiet, tense moment, she realized that the greatest battles she had ever fought were not with alien fleets or rival empires. They were with doubt, with longing, and with the courage to follow a heart that refused to obey reason. Solara's shuttle touched the jagged surface of the planet with a gentle tremor, dust swirling around the landing pads. The barren ground stretched endlessly, gray and cold. Yet in the midst of this desolation, a small glimmer of movement caught her eye. Her heart leapt in a way she hadn't felt in decades, a fragile rhythm that made her forget the vast empire she ruled, the fleets at her command, the stars she had conquered. She gripped the shuttle controls, her breath shallow, and stepped onto the rocky terrain. There, emerging from the shadows of the ruined settlement, was a figure she recognized instantly, though years had carved lines into his face and life had hardened his hands. He looked smaller, more fragile, yet there was a strength in his stance that matched the courage she remembered from their youth. Solara's chest tightened, and for a moment, words failed her. She could see the same gentle eyes she had once laughed with, eyes that had looked at her as though she were more than a leader, more than a symbol, more than the galaxy itself. The man froze when he saw her, disbelief and hope battling across his face. Slowly, almost cautiously, he stepped forward. Solara's legs shook, yet she moved toward him, each step lighter than the weight of her empire had ever allowed her to feel. She wanted to speak, to cry, to laugh, but no sound emerged. Her heart had taken control, and the mind that had ruled galaxies whispered nothing against its power. He stopped mere feet away, and time seemed to bend around them. Years of silence, danger, and separation collapsed into the space between two hearts finally meeting again. He reached out his hand, trembling, as if afraid the moment might vanish like a dream. Solara's fingers met his, warm and alive, and the world outside, the barren ruins, the gray dust, the endless void, faded away. For a heartbeat, there was only them, standing beneath twin suns that painted their reunion with soft light. "You're alive," he whispered, voice breaking, eyes glistening. I thought I'd lost you forever." Solara shook her head, tears escaping despite her control. I never stopped hopping, I never stopped remembering. Her voice, though small, carried the weight of decades, the loneliness, the battles, the silent longing that had driven her across the stars. I searched the galaxy and I found you. He smiled, a shaky, joyful curve that mirrored her own. I waited, hoping that one day you'd come back. Solara's knees threatened to buckle and she steadied herself against the ruins. The empire, the fleets, the throne, none of it mattered now. She felt the years of solitude, of power without love, melt away. In his presence, she was not empress, not ruler, not conqueror. She was simply Solara, a woman whose heart had found its echo after a lifetime of silence. They embraced, hesitant at first, as if testing the reality of each other's existence. The cold wind whipped around them, the ruins groaned with age, but their hands remained locked, their hearts synchronized in a rhythm older than the stars. Memories flooded back, childhood laughter, stolen moments under alien skis, whispered dreams that had been left unspoken for too long. And in that embrace, Solara realized that the galaxy she had ruled so meticulously had never contained anything as powerful as this simple human connection. Hours passed as they spoke, laughed, and cried in the dusty ruins. Each story shared, each tear shed, healed the wounds that power and time had inflicted. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, responding to the light of hearts that refused to obey distance, fear, or despair. For Solara, the reunion was more than relief. It was revelation. She had conquered galaxies, commanded fleets, and built empires. But love, fragile and untamed, had always been beyond her control. Now, standing hand in hand with the one she had never stopped seeking, she understood the truth she had ignored for so long. The greatest victories were not of power, but of the heart. And somewhere deep within her, a quiet, fierce joy began to bloom, a joy that no throne, no fleet, no empire could ever give her. The galaxy could wait. She had found him, and in finding him, she had discovered herself. Solara stood on the barren planet, watching the sun rise over jagged mountains, its light spilling across the ruins and casting long shadows behind her. The man she had sought for decades walked beside her, his presence grounding her in a way no throne ever could. For the first time, she felt a peace that was entirely hers, untouchable by fleets, alliances, or wars. Yet beneath the calm, a storm brewed. Her empire needed her. Planets demanded attention, armies expected orders, and countless lives depended on her wisdom. She had ruled the galaxy for decades, and now the one thing she had never ruled was her own heart. Her advisors' messages reached her through the comms, urgent and insistent. "Empress, we cannot maintain stability without you," one voice said, tight with worry. "The Jaren fleets are regrouping, and several colonies are considering independence. Your absence risks chaos across the systems." Solara held the communicator, her gaze distant, feeling the weight of every word and every expectation. She had faced impossible odds before, wars that spanned light years, rebellions that threatened entire sectors, betrayals that shattered alliances. But this was different. This was not about strategy or strength or fear. This was about choice, about whether she could allow her heart to define her life instead of the galaxy. The man looked at her, sensing the battle within. "Solara," he said softly, "you do not have to choose the galaxy over us. You are more than your throne. You are you." His words carried no judgment, no pressure, only faith. Yet they echoed louder in her mind than any fleet report or diplomatic counsel. She closed her eyes, memories flooding back. The first time she had laughed with him beneath the twin moons, the stolen moments of joy before the weight of the galaxy had pulled them apart, the longing she had carried across decades and light years. The empire she had built, the throne she had claimed, it all felt hollow compared to the truth in front of her. The galaxy could survive without one ruler, but she could not survive without this connection, without love. Finally, she opened her eyes, the clarity of her decision reflected in their depths. "I have ruled planets, fleets, and systems for decades," she said, her voice steady yet tender. "I have conquered warlords, survived betrayals, and built empires, but I have never ruled my own heart. And now I will." Her advisors protested through the comms, voices sharp with urgency. "Empress, you cannot abandon your duties. Systems will collapse. Colonies will rebel." Salara's fingers hovered over the communicator, then she pressed a single button and severed the connection. She turned toward him, letting the wind whip across her face, letting the ruins embrace them both. "The galaxy will wait," she said simply. "I have chosen life. I have chosen love. I will not live an eternity of command if it means my heart remains empty." The man took her hand, his eyes glistening with emotion. "Then we will face everything together," he said. "No matter what the universe throws at us, we will face it side by side." Salara nodded, a smile breaking across her face. For decades, she had measured herself by the weight of stars, by the obedience of fleets, by the fear and respect she commanded. Now, she measured herself by something far simpler, far deeper, by the courage to follow a heart that refused to obey reason, by the joy of being truly alive with someone she loved. That day, the Empress of the Galaxy became more than a ruler. She became human, fragile, fearless, and free. She had built civilizations and conquered stars, yet her most profound victory was the one no history book would record, the victory of love over duty, of heart over empire. As she and the man walked through the ruins, hand in hand, the first rays of sunlight catching on the shattered buildings, Salara felt something she had never felt in her life, complete and unshakable certainty. The galaxy could endure without her for a time. She had waited centuries to find him, and now that she had, she would never let go. The stars, silent witnesses to her reign, seemed to shimmer in approval. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future not as empress, not as a conqueror, not as a solitary figure among fleets, but as a woman with a heart that had chosen life, with love as her compass, and with someone to share it all. The barren planet that had once seemed lifeless now glowed with a quiet beauty. Salara and the man she had searched for decades walked hand in hand, their steps careful among the ruins of abandoned buildings. The sun rose slowly, painting the cracked earth with golden light, and the wind carried a soft warmth that whispered promises of new beginnings. For the first time, Salara felt unburdened. She was no longer the Empress of the Galaxy in the strict sense. She had left behind the fleets, the throne, the endless reports. But she had discovered something infinitely more powerful, a life shared with someone who knew her heart, someone who could see her as she truly was. Stories of Empress Salara would continue to circulate across the galaxy. Historians would speak of her brilliance, her strategies, and the empire she had united. They would recount how she had conquered hostile fleets and negotiated peace among warring species. But no record could capture the choice she had made, the courage it took to step away from a life of power in pursuit of love. That story, the one that mattered most to her, existed only here, among the rocks, the winds, and the stars that watched silently above. Salara paused at the edge of a cliff, looking out at the horizon. He stood beside her, silent and steady, a quiet anchor in a world that had once been defined entirely by chaos and command. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, voice low, almost hesitant. She shook her head, a soft smile on her lips. "Not for a moment," she said. "I ruled galaxies and commanded fleets, but none of that mattered as much as this. Love, this is the only thing worth choosing." He nodded, letting his hand squeeze hers gently. Together, they explored the ruins, cleaning remnants of machinery and creating small shelters for themselves. They planted seeds in the cracked soil, coaxing life from the barren ground. Each action, each shared laugh, each simple meal became a declaration of a new kind of empire, one built not on fear or obedience, but on trust, care, and shared moments. Salara felt her heart expand with every day that passed. At night they would sit on the cliffs and watch the stars. Once, Salara had felt the galaxy was cold, vast, and indifferent. Now she saw it differently. Each star seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the joy she had allowed herself to embrace. The man beside her would tell stories of his own survival, of narrow escapes and quiet hopes, and she would listen, laughing and crying in turn. They shared dreams once forgotten, weaving together past and present into a tapestry stronger than any empire. Solara knew that the galaxy continued to turn, that her absence might be felt, that systems might stumble, but she no longer feared it. Empires could wait. The stars themselves could wait. She had finally found her place, and it was not on a throne of crystal or steel. It was here, under the open sky, hand in hand with the person who had survived time, space, and silence to find her again. Years passed, and the barren planet slowly changed. Small plants took root, tiny streams flowed through broken canals, and the ruins were no longer symbols of desolation, but of rebirth. Solara and the man grew old together, their hands lined with age but still clasped firmly, their hearts beating in quiet harmony. They laughed at the memory of her empires, at the power she had once wielded with such precision. Those victories were hers, yes, but they paled beside the triumph she now lived every day. A life chosen freely, a love that had endured against all odds, a heart finally at peace. And somewhere across the galaxy, distant suns and planets continued to shine. Perhaps some sensed it, the echo of a ruler who had dared to let her heart guide her, who had chosen love over dominion, hope over fear. Solara had once ruled the galaxy, yet in giving herself to the one she loved, she had achieved something greater than any conquest. She had discovered the true meaning of life, of connection, and of joy. Under the endless sky, Solara rested her head against the man's shoulder. The galaxy could continue its vast dance, but she no longer belonged to it. She belonged to love, to life, to this fragile, beautiful freedom. And in that choice she had found eternity.